The worst position is to be in a relationship and think that you're showing up in the way that matters in your relationship, but yet come to find out on the other side of a hard conversation that you're not.
And the truth of the matter is, and this is a hard conversation, and I have already talked to this person about that, is that obviously they don't believe it'll be worth it. And I think that you do need to question how much your husband believes in the relationship.
Conscious couples, business partners, and singles committed to attracting their dream partner. Welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and combined relationship expertise to help you create and consistently cultivate the most magnificent, intimate relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching conscious couples and individuals all over the world, as well as starting and growing a global business together, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals from all over the world, welcome back to the one and only Conscious Couples podcast for today. Episode number 64, Who's Showing Up for the Relationship More? Now, this is not a competition, but it is very important to understand who is investing more in your relationship. Without further ado, we want to thank Next Level Podcast Solutions for producing this show, audio, video, and all the rest. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And sweetheart, as always, what is your intention for today's episode?
I want our listeners to have this podcast episode spark that dialogue, the honest dialogue around who's showing up more in the relationship. Because I think deeply when we can have an open dialogue around who is showing up more, and for all the reasons that we're going to get into in this episode, I think that it can help couples grow more together and have a greater chance at growing together instead of apart.
So we have an analogy, and so if you've ever bought a new car or even a used car, taken out any sort of car loan, if you believe that that car is going to be worth that amount of money per month, then you most likely bought it. And what can happen, and if this has ever happened to you, what happens is you purchase a car and then you're paying, let's say, $500 a month. All of a sudden you stop liking the car. All of a sudden it starts breaking down. You got to bring it to the mechanic. It's a lemon in those cases. That's an analogy for what can happen in dating. If you've been in the honeymoon phase, which, by the way, if you haven't listened to the last episode, that's what we talked about. The honeymoon phase. Be careful of the honeymoon phase. What happens if you buy a car that you thought was going to be magnificent, that you thought was going to be worth $500 a month, and then all of a sudden it starts breaking down slowly over time? That is a good analogy for what can happen in a relationship when someone on the dating game is actually showing you the best version of them. They're trying to show you and say all the right things, do all the right things. And then all of a sudden you get in a relationship and maybe the effort starts to dwindle a little bit. Maybe the quality time starts to dwindle a little bit. Maybe they aren't exactly who they portrayed in the beginning. Has this happened to you if you're out there listening? It's definitely happened to me in my past as well. And so this is the honest conversation of, number one, are you still investing what you did in the beginning? That whole analogy of, if you do what you did in the beginning, there won't be an end. In the honeymoon phase, you were doing everything you could to fulfill your partner, to show up at your best, to listen intently when they're talking. But 2 years in, 4 years in, 8 years in, 16 years in, maybe, is it still the same level of enthusiasm? Is it still the same level of belief in the relationship? Is it still worth the $500 a month in this analogy? Or has it started to breaking down and you have to come to the mechanic, aka relationship talks coaching? Just joking. But that's kind of the analogy here.
One of the things that you and I do, babe, that I want to share with our listeners, that because I think it's really going to be beneficial for this episode, is that you and I still do our gratitude game. And I want to give a lot of the credit to you for that, because you help us remember which nights we've fallen asleep on and which ones we don't. But
last night,
essentially for anyone who is a new listener, Alan and I, from the very beginning of our relationship, we made sure that we got into a practice of giving gratitudes. And though it's evolved from, we had to kind of rein it in a little bit. I took it down the 16 gratitudes per day rabbit hole. And then I think
the highest we got to was 33.
33.
I think 33
oh my God,
gratitudes.
That was definitely on me.
We used to do audios to each other. Sorry to interrupt you, love.
No.
But I remember there was several occasions where we'd do this before bed.
Yeah.
So before bed, we'd send each other our gratitudes, and this is before we lived together.
Yeah.
So now we just do it live.
Yeah.
Because we're in
awesome.
bed together, which is wonderful. But back then it was audios. And I remember it would be like, I'm grateful for how handsome you are.
I didn't snore.
No, I didn't. That's for comic effect for the listeners.
Perfect.
No, you didn't snore, but all of a sudden it would just be like some radio silence.
Yeah.
And then it would be this. Ready? So cute. Oh, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I fell asleep. I must have fallen asleep. I'm so sorry. I'm grateful for. And it would happen again. It was the cutest thing ever.
Cute.
I have so many of those saved.
I know.
For any time I need an
Blackmail.
endearing moment and or a good laugh.
Yeah. So why I mentioned that for this relationship is because you and I both hold the belief that it's going to be worth it to have those practices in our relationship, because where your focus goes, your attention flows. And that is absolutely everything when it comes to your relationship and kind of understanding who in your relationship is showing up more. It's the person that believes in it more, the person that believes it'll be worth it. Their energy, their focus, their attention will be focused in on that. So for you and I, for the gratitude game, we're still doing that. Even, and we're almost 4 years into our relationship. And that's been something that we've found has been extremely important in our relationship, because we believe focusing on being grateful for one another, that helps to really pave the runway for the future of our relationship. That's a practice that I know you and I will keep forever. Like, genuinely.
Same. And we actually, for those of you who don't know, we actually stopped doing gratitudes for a short time. And then I think it was like 3 or 4 months, something like that. Yeah. 2 to 6 months. I don't know exactly. Time's been flying.
Yeah.
But I remember coming to you and saying, sweetheart, I feel like we need to bring that back.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we're acting as grateful as we once were. And so if you've never done that practice, I don't know if we've done an episode on gratitude game.
I don't know if we have.
Okay, little side tangent here. Gratitude game. Before bed, you say 3 things about your partner that you're most grateful for.
Yep.
And if you fall asleep, like we did last night, you text it the next day.
You text or you double. So I play a memory game with myself because I've publicly communicated that I struggle with memory. So like for tonight, for example, I'll double dip with gratitude. So I'll give you 6 gratitudes because we've decided 3 a night is optimal for us in our relationship.
Because we used to do 33 a night and that wasn't sustainable, which is, by the way, why we stopped.
Right. Yep. You can thank me for that. So tonight I'll be giving you 6 gratitudes and you get to look forward to that. But we're doing that because we both believe that it'll be worth it. And you and I are both going to be showing up in our relationship in that way. And so for our listeners, I think what might be helpful for them is the gratitude game is a great example of how we show up to the relationship so that we can communicate and show one another who's showing up more, and not necessarily in a competition, but more so because this is what we believe will be worth it.
It's an awareness thing.
Yeah.
It's an awareness thing. I have a dear friend and a client, and I will keep this anonymous, and she's in a marriage, and she brought this really cute game to her husband, and it's card questions, and to get to know each other better. And the husband didn't take it very seriously, which really hurt that person.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, and this is a hard conversation, and I have already talked to this person about that, is that obviously they don't believe it'll be worth it. And I think that you do need to question how much your husband believes in the relationship, and definitely question how much the husband is showing up for the relationship.
Definitely.
You're not going to invest in a company you don't believe is going to win. So for those of you who don't know about investing, what you do is you buy a stock, a percentage in a company, and you trust that that company is going to succeed in the future, so you get a bigger return. A better analogy would be, you're not going to buy a home that you don't believe is going to be more valuable. You don't buy a home that you don't believe in. You don't invest in your own education if you don't believe in a brighter future. Your partner, if they're not investing in the relationship, it's because unconsciously or subconsciously or both, or even consciously, they don't believe in it anymore. They don't believe in it to the extent that they used to. And that's the hard reality. That is the truth. And I've been there too.
Oh, yeah.
The more you believe in the relationship, the more you believe in your partner, the more you believe in yourself, the more you believe it'll be worth it, the more you're going to show up. Why would we do gratitude game every single night if we didn't want and believe in this relationship?
Right.
If Emilia and I didn't believe in this podcast, we wouldn't be doing this episode right now.
True.
And so for that person, as hurtful as that was, she needs to smell the roses and say, you know what?
Definitely.
My husband obviously doesn't believe in us like he once did.
Yeah.
And what does that mean about our relationship? That's a hard conversation waiting to happen right there.
For sure.
And if you need help, please reach out.
Yeah.
What's going on? This is Branden and Hannah. We wanted to give a shout out to Alan and Emilia and their relationship talks. And going into relationship talks, I was under the impression that, my relationship didn't have any conflict or didn't have any problems. It actually was that way, but I knew I wanted a relationship that resembled Alan and Emilia, and that's a relationship that is just next level and different from other relationships. So seeking out their help has really brought me and Hannah together, and it's just been really, really incredible, and I can't thank them enough.
Yeah, Alan and Emilia have both helped us in recognizing and acknowledging each other's really important core values and given us insight and guidance on how to align those together so that we know we're growing together and never apart. The goal is always to kind of be in everything together as a team.
Alan and Emilia, we love you and thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you.
Well, here's the thing. I find that a lot of people actually look at just the words because it's like, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you. And like, words are very easy to dish out. We know that. We've been in past relationships where we've just looked at the words of like someone saying I love you, but wanted to not really look at the actions, because if we actually looked at the actions in terms of how our past partners were actually showing up in their behaviors for the relationship, there would be a stark difference in that. It's like, you say you love me, however, how are you showing that? People need to see the actions that support the words that they need and love to hear in a relationship. And I think that honestly, when we get into a relationship and we're past that infatuation stage or in the power struggle phase, which we mentioned in the last episode, if that's something that's new to you, I highly recommend go back in that episode. Sometimes we want to just believe that our relationship is at a current state that's actually better than it really is. Why? Because things would have to change if you actually look at the reality that, oh my God, you might be showing up more for this relationship than your partner. What does that mean? Are they willing to kind of show up to the plate and match or contribute more? And how do you go about navigating the uncomfortable conversation around, babe, like, I love what you say here, but like, I'm struggling to see evidence and action that supports what you're telling me, which you're telling me you love me, but yet my cup fillers are extremely empty. You say you love me, but yet I'm not having you, you're not helping out with XYZ when I express it. You're not responding to my emotional needs, right? There's a big difference in that. And I think that that's where all the growth can happen in relationships. So for that person, yes, looking and waking up and smelling the roses, honestly, that could save that person from years, who knows, decades of misery. And I find that now is the best time to kind of wake up and do that, because who knows what's on the other side of that? It might be growth. You might have a partner that actually didn't realize how much there was a contrast between what they say versus what they're doing. They might think that what they're doing means so much to you, when in reality, it really doesn't, right? And that's where we've gone in past episodes kind of talking about love languages and cup fillers and how you can do the top 5 cup fillers or the top 3. And that can really mean a whole bunch to your relationship. But if you're not doing the things that matter the most, that might be flying under the radar. Your partner might not realize how much you actually do care about the relationship. So the worst position is to be in a relationship and think that you're showing up in the way that matters in your relationship, but yet come to find out on the other side of a hard conversation that you're not. At least though, when that does happen, if that does happen, if your partner has the courage to say, you're not showing up in the way that we agreed to, that I want to see in this relationship, you can at least do something about it. But because we hate confrontation as human beings, we tend to avoid that stuff.
if you keep sweeping it under the rug, if you keep avoiding it, if you keep procrastinating, nothing is going to change. We never said that this was easy. We did say, and we do say, that it's difficult. Love isn't built in a day. It's built every day. And so if you need to have that hard conversation, now's the time. One thing I want to share, last thing, and then we do have to jump. This person has been divorced before, and they have children, and she has a new husband, and they have children together. And her deepest fear is co-parenting separately again.
Yeah.
Her deepest fear is if she acknowledges this hard truth that her partner doesn't actually care or believe in the relationship to the extent that she does, that he's going to leave or she's going to have to leave him. And I said this, and this is what I would say to our listeners as well. That deepest fear has to be replaced with a bigger fear. And that bigger fear needs to be being stuck for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
If your fear of being stuck is greater than your fear of the conversation, you will have the conversation. And when the pain is great enough, you will change. Just don't wait. And so hopefully this episode has awoken everyone to some extent. Emilia and I try really hard not to let a lot of time go by where we're sweeping anything under the rug.
Yeah.
Sweetheart, your eyes okay?
Sorry, my eyes are killing me.
No, it's because of these bright lights.
Yeah.
Yeah. But have the difficult conversation. You might be pleasantly surprised with what comes of it.
Right.
They're either going to level up or they're going to level out. And I think our fear of the possibility of them leveling out and leaving our life and us losing love keeps us from having the conversation altogether. So
exactly.
Again, we gotta jump here. But remember, the question here, I have this written down. Who believes in your relationship more? Is it you or is it your partner? Maybe you are out there like, oh, I don't believe in my relationship as much as I used to. Why not? What's different? Is it because this is a downward spiral? I believe in it less. Now my partner believes in it less because I'm investing less. My partner's investing less, so now I believe in it less. Now I invest less. It's a downward spiral of failure.
Triggering each other.
Yes. And
just talk about
that's what I call a downward spiral of failure. We both believe in the house less, therefore we don't renovate it. When we don't renovate it, now we believe in it even less. Now it depreciates in value. Now we don't think it's worth it. That's an analogy for the relationship versus a couple that believes in the future and is renovating the house and changing the kitchen and working on the bedrooms and getting new curtains and cleaning the bathroom and gutting the basement, right? That's the same as you have to cultivate your relationship the same type of way.
And talk about too, like, hey, as a team, what should we be investing in next? Whether that's upgrading your communication style, whether that's improving the gratitude game that we're doing, like you can be a team in that. And that's what we find a lot of couples really deeply want. They want to be a team in that investment, but yet struggle to try to figure out what are those conversations that will prompt that. So I think that this episode will definitely be a great start for that and seeing who's showing up more in the relationship. Like I said, to the intention, spark that honest dialogue because you got to be honest with yourself first before you can be honest with your partner.
Very well said, love. And if you are the one who isn't maybe investing as much as you once did, bring this episode to your partner and say, listen, I'm sorry. I didn't realize, but I've let the standards slip. I've stopped believing in us and I'm ready to change. Let's listen to this podcast. Let's start investing in our relationship. That's what our listeners do. They want to invest in the future. They want to invest in each other. They want to invest in themselves. So that's what this podcast is always about. Love isn't built in a day. It's built every single day. Okay, so we have a Relationship Talks virtual event. It is the 3 biggest risks to your relationship failing. One of them is not believing in your relationship enough. It's a big one. Please join us. Do you remember the date, love?
I believe it's May 11th.
Okay, May 11th.
Thursday.
7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hope you join us. It's going to be, you can keep your mic off, you can keep your camera off. Really what this is going to be is kind of like relationship insurance. We're going to dig deep. We're going to talk. It's private, so we can talk about things there that are very unique to you, that are very unique to us, that we don't necessarily share publicly. So you can be safe, you can be vulnerable, you can come and join us. They're not recorded. What happens in that room stays in that room, and it's a very safe space for everyone to be vulnerable about the actual challenges in their relationship. So it's a very special place. To register, the link will be in the show notes.
You have pet insurance, you probably have house insurance, you probably have life insurance, and you probably have car insurance. What about relationship insurance? Honestly, we believe so deeply in love, and we believe that love should be protected every single day. And so Alan and I make sure that we have 30 minutes on our calendar every single Saturday, so that if you don't want to wait till the event and you want to get a jump start on investing in your relationship, maybe you and your partner are having a hard time. Maybe you guys aren't on the same page of who's showing up more. Maybe after this podcast, you're realizing where you're really at and you're struggling because you don't know what's the next step to have the conversation. We make sure that we have a private, safe space so that you can start having relationship insurance, which is starting those conversations, which is working through how you can show up more or maybe in a more effective way. And so that relationship talks, it's private, it's free, it's that safe space for you and your partner to be able to show up for the relationship. And that link will also be in the show notes. So we would love to meet you. And it's completely free too. So we make sure that we do that so that you can have access to the help that you need.
Thank you so much as always for listening. And as always, it is not about you or me. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please make sure you follow us on Instagram. I am at Evolve with Emilia and Alan is a Lazaros 88.
Also, if you or your partner resonated with this episode, leave us a review at the link in the show notes, and please share this with someone you love and care about.
Until next time, remember, it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.